You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
All right, let's switch gears now to Bellator. Bellator 135 in Thackerville, Oklahoma at the WinStar World Casino. Thackerville, we have a casino and we host fights.
That's pretty much the only reason anybody would go to Thackerville. Oh, you're going to Thackerville? What are you going to do? Gamble?
I'm going to watch some
fights. Exactly. No other reason. But I will say I wouldn't mind going for a card like this because the self-declared baddest man on the planet, Joe Warren, is in the main event facing Marcos Galvão, a rematch of Bellator 41.
That's a long time ago.
That is. And it's not been forgotten, though. It's a fight that many people believe Galvão won.
Well, Warren is, I think Warren should be the favorite in this one, though, the defending champion.
I've got him as the guy who's going to win the fight, but I'm saying that there is a lot of people, including the Bellator commentators, who think that Galvão outworked him because that was the first time that Warren tried to get down to bantamweight, and I don't think he was quite ready for the weight class yet. I think it's possible, even though the scoring went Warren's way, that he might not have been winning that fight. The real controversy seems to be that it was unanimous. Like, nobody can believe that Warren got a unanimous decision in their last fight.
I think it's going to come down to who wants it more. And in this case, you got to think Warren wants to tell everybody that first fight wasn't a fluke.
That's true. And when you look at them statistically, they've got a hell of a lot of similarities. Galvão wins with a decision in 75% of his fights, 12 out of 16 wins, but so does Joe Warren, 8 out of 12. Now, if it comes down to who can out-wrestle the other, you know I'm going with the University of Michigan Greco-Roman wrestler, one of the most decorated wrestlers in the country. It's got to be Joe Warren if it goes to a fight where it's a battle for who can take down the other and who can stuff the other's takedown and who's going to outlast the other and just grind out the fight. In that kind of fight, you got to favor Joe Warren, especially over 5 rounds.
What about the semi-main event with Francis Carmont against Guilherme Viana?
Actually, I have the semi-main event as LC Davis and Hideo Tokoro.
Oh, okay, well, let's talk about Carmont and then we'll go Davis.
All right, well, Carmont is coming off a slide in UFC. He lost, I believe, 3 fights in a row, including the last one that got him cut when he was sent packing via a punch from Talis Ladies. And I feel like his fortunes are going to continue in that direction because Guilherme Viana, he was on Tough Brazil 3. He didn't make it all the way through, but he was also fighting at heavyweight, whereas he's a natural light heavyweight. This is his weight class, and he's got heavy hands. He gets a TKO in 67% of his wins. So you take a guy who's been on a backslide, who just got knocked out in his last UFC fight, versus a guy who was on Tough Brazil, didn't make it to UFC, but is an incredible striker. I got Viana in this one.
Reminds me of, what's his name in WWE? Michael Tarver.
All right. Well, I'll take your word for it. There's your obscure pro wrestling information for the night. And now we move back to the co-main event, which is LC Davis and Hideo Tokoro.
I want to say Davis.
Well, you should. He's definitely the more consistent fighter. He's 22-6, and Tokoro is 32, 27, and 2.
It's just the experience for Tokoro. You know, he might do something that Davis might not be expecting, you know?
It's possible. I mean, we have seen him in his only other fight in the United States, armbar Brad Pickett in the first round. But there is that factor that Tokoro has only been to the U.S. one other time, so we don't know how this trip's going to affect him. And coincidentally, we do know how the same thing affected LC Davis when he went to Japan. He didn't have a very good night. He felt he came out flat because he wasn't used to the travel and the weight cut. So this time he's got the home turf advantage, and he's been on a roll in Bellator lately, so I don't see that roll stopping anytime soon.
Now, is there anything in the other fight with Dakota Cochran and Ryan Couture?
Well, statistically, they're both excellent grapplers, and Couture picks up 55% of his wins via submission. Cochran gets 38% of his wins via submission. The thing that I think makes the real difference here is that Couture is the son of a legend, Randy the Natural Couture. So if you're gonna be somebody that's featured on main cards with the last name Couture, you got a lot of motivation to go out there and succeed. And obviously Bellator wants him to succeed because they would like to keep moving him up the cards and maybe even give him a lightweight title shot somewhere down the line. But they're not making it easy for him. Cochran is a veteran fighter. He's been around the block and he's got a pretty good record at 18-7. So it's a tough fight for him. But I think Couture can eke out a unanimous decision.
Is there anything on the prelims that catches your eye here?
Let's see. The prelims for Bellator 135. I guess if I had to pick anything, it would probably be Villalobos versus Emmanuel Sanchez, but that'd be about it.
Alright. Now let's move on to some news and notes. Before we do, we should look at some cards that have been updated because of injuries to certain fighters, which after 1 week not talking about this, we have a few in this one. Let's start with UFC on Fox, April the 18th in Newark, New Jersey. Kenny Robertson is out of his fight against George Sullivan. It's now George Sullivan fighting Tim Means.
Oh, the Dirty Bird is back again.
And the main event is still Lyoto Machida and Luke Rockhold.
That's going to be a hell of a fight.
UFC 186, April 25th in Montreal, Quebec. Claudio Silva is out. Chris Clements is in. It's Clements against Nordine Taleb. Nordine Taleb. Tongue is tied today.
And that's a Canadian fighter, so you ought to be able to say that.
Yeah, I know. Now, this is why I was confused. This is why this isn't the only fight that has been changed this week. TJ Dillashaw is out of his fight against Renan Barão, defending the bantamweight title, so the main event is off due to a rib injury. The new main event, as of it stands right now, is the co-main event, Demetrius Johnson defending his flyweight title against Koji Horiguchi.
Interesting. Well, that's unfortunate.
Now we do, let's continue with UFC 186 because there was one fighter on there that has, been suspended for a year. The Nevada State Athletic Commission had their hearing. They've suspended, Hector Lombard for a full calendar year. His win at UFC 182 is ruled a no contest and he is fined, looks like, just over $100,000.
Needless to say, Hector Lombard will probably be dropping more in the rankings than he already did this week. He only moved down one spot to number 7, but if he's inactive for over a year, a lot of people are going to pass him by.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Okay. Bellator 138, June the 19th in St. Louis, Missouri. The co-main event has been signed. Michael Chandler against Derek Campos.
Yep, I broke that news on MMA Mania this week.
And what's the main event, Stevie? Please say it. What's the main event?
It's a fight that should have happened in 2008 and never did. It's Kevin Ferguson, a.k.a. Kimbo Slice, versus Ken Shamrock.
In 2015.
Yes. 6 years, 7 years after it should have happened, it's finally taking place.
Wow. Like, just the thought of Shamrock fighting in 2015 against, of all people, Kimbo Slice.
Well, like the Maniacs said on MMA Mania when I posted about this, they have cardio for minutes.
Yeah.
So don't expect it to get out of the first round.
I think the referee will have the best cardio in that cage.
Or as Jesse Finney from Shamrock FC said when I interviewed him, it's going to go one of two ways. Either Ken Shamrock leg locks him quick or Kimbo knocks him out quick.
Can you imagine if Shamrock shoots a takedown in the early going and Kimbo just throws like a wild uppercut?
Actually, it'd be even funnier if he threw a big knee at the same time he was shooting and knocked him out cold with a knee.
Ooh.
You could see that happening. It could.
Kimbo defeats Shamrock. Wow.
Who knows how that fight's going to go? We're just going to have to wait and see in June.
Let's see. We talked about Dober. We talked about Maya. Amanda Nunes wants a rematch with Kat Zingano.
Well, after the way she beat up Shayna Baszler, she probably has a little more leverage to call shots.